Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the April 5th meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Just for clarification, so everyone knows, we do have everybody here today, which is nice to have. We've been a little shy, one or two over the last few meetings. So Jerry, you're actually the alternate, so you won't be voting tonight at this point. So we're here. We'd love to hear your opinions.
Five regular members, 2 alternates.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, so we're clarified on that, but we want to hear your opinion because I know you'll have some. It may start right now, right? The first item of business, the approval of the minutes from the March meeting. And we had a copy in our packet. So if everybody had a chance to look them over, I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes. We have no support, discussion. All in favor of the minutes being accepted as written, aye. Opposed. All right, minutes are adopted. New business items, and Commissioner, make sure when you're ready to talk, you turn your microphone on, please. Okay. New business, our first item is for 1310 East Maumee Street. I don't think we have anybody here right now for that. So we will move on to our second item, then maybe they'll show up and we'll jump back to that. So let me adjust my papers here a second. Okay, so now we are looking at our second item on the agenda, which is a temporary use of 5-year seasonal use for a fruit and vegetable stand, 1357 South Maumee, from the, excuse me, South Main, not Maumee. And we have Mr. Tillison, one of the Mr. Tillisons, to speak to us tonight, please.
Hi, Mark. Thank you. Yeah, our permit is up. We applied for another one. I think everybody's probably familiar where we're talking, the fruit and vegetable stand out by the mall. We applied for a temporary use permit. I've looked at the criteria and I read the purpose and intent. Application, I think we turned things in, but Dad has a drawing, or he's also got the lease. It goes to non-recurring temporary use. I don't think that probably is relevant to what we're doing, but 14-84 seasonal temporary use says annual, seasonal, or reoccurring uses are uses of a period of no longer than 6 months, which may reoccur on a seasonal basis. Annual, seasonal, or recurring temporary uses located within any commercial zoning district of this city shall include, which goes to number 1, I think pertains to us, off-site agriculture sales, including but not limited to Christmas tree lots, pumpkin patches, fruit and vegetable stands. I think that's probably the one that applies to us. We read the conditions. I think we abide by them. We haven't had any trouble with the police and try to abide by the sign ordinance, and we're open to suggestions if we can do better. But anyways, it goes from there to criteria, and I would like to think we meet it. We have in the past. I'd like to think we're compatible with things around it. It's a reasonable use of the land. I know with the mall, they've got big plans, and we got to be a little bit flexible. They might have a big thing that's good for the community, and if so, we're gonna have to move. But so far, we've been there over 20 years. I think it's a reasonable use. I don't think it adversely affects anybody. I don't think it'll endanger the public health. I better hope it don't, or I'm in a whole lot of trouble. Provisions for adequate traffic access circulation, that's probably the best part of it. We got that little thing between the mall going to Myers. If you're elderly, I think, boy, you can just pull right off there nice and safe. That's probably the best part of the whole deal, I would say. But anyways, We are asking for 5 years. And I guess that's about what I have to offer unless there's questions.
Commissioners, questions? All been down this road before?
Seen it and heard it all before.
Yeah.
Are you planning on doing anything different?
No, not really. We've got some plans. We live in a different world than we did. And we try to take care of all kinds of people. We take the stamps that they hand out, for the fresh produce. We try to, and we do what we got to do. If somebody comes and they pick out $30 worth and they got 20 and they look like they need some help, no problem. We help them. We just tell them, oh, I said, don't feel bad. Someday you're going to be where you can help somebody, you help somebody back. With inflation and everything the way it is, we get a big bunch of corn we don't know what to do with. We may have a sale and people want to freeze, and we're going to do anything we can. We're in business, but we're going to do anything we can to help the community too, get through some of these times. But as far as the building, I don't see anything different. Not that I can think of.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Anybody else to speak on this? Everybody jump up at once. All right, we do have some items we need to go down through.
Okay.
And so we'll work our way down through these. Temporary use permit, number one, temporary use permit is compatible with the various provisions of this chapter. Obviously, they're applying for their 5-year, which they're allowed to do after their initial one. So not a problem there. Number two, temporary use, reasonable use of land, compatible, general plan land and designation and zoning. This is a temporary use. It is in a commercial area, which permits the selling and storing of food premise, so not a problem there. Number three, temporary use will not impede reasonable use of land or the orderly development of the land in the immediate vicinity. Once again, not a problem. This is there. I assume somewhere, I know in the past you've had something from the mall owners, but I don't know how that applies.
Yeah, we got a lease and they've got some hopes and
Okay,
dreams for that, and we understand.
okay, but
Mr.
we're
Chair,
not,
if I can.
Yeah.
So I did speak with the mall and they did give permission. I just didn't include it. in the
okay, that's, I
packets,
just
but
want to make
do-
sure we were,
I do have that with their application.
okay. Just want to make sure we had
Okay.
that. Number four, temporary use shall not adversely affect the adjacent use, buildings or other features. Obviously, there's not going to be an issue there. It's all commercial, so nothing there. Number five, temporary use will not endanger the public health, safety, or general welfare. Obviously, you have to comply with all the local rules, so if you do something wrong, I'm sure somebody will let you know. Number six, provision for adequate traffic access, circulation, off-street parking, pedestrian safety have been provided and will be maintained during the operation and use activity. There's plenty of drive area there, plenty of parking area. People don't have to walk across the road, so find yes for number six. Number seven, that granting the temporary use permit is made subject to the conditions necessary to preserve general welfare and the individual welfare of any particular applicant. Don't see any issue with that, why anyone would have a problem, so fine for that. And recommendation would be approval of the 5 years for vegetable stand, June 1st, October 31st, hours 10 to 6. Does anyone have any questions or disagree with any of the findings? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairperson, I would move for adoption of the resolution that staff has provided and approving the temporary use permit for 1357 South Main Street to allow a 5-year fruit and vegetable stand.
We have motion support? We have support. Any questions on the motion? Roll call vote, please.
Neely,
Support.
Strayer,
Support.
Koleski,
Support.
Jacobitz.
Yes.
Berthold.
Support.
Motion passed unanimously.
5 years, sell away.
All right, thank you. It was a pleasure to do business in our community. Thank you.
I spoke with the other applicant. They will be joining on Zoom.
Oh,
So
Okay.
It's up to you guys if you wanna wait or not, but.
And how will we know? Evidently, our other applicant is trying to come in on Zoom. How do we know
They'll show up on- they'll show up on the screen.
they'll
Pop
pop up?
up there if they
Okay.
come in. The screen will divide.
Is there anything else on the agenda? Or we try and wait here a moment or so that anybody needs to bring up? I don't see anything listed here, but
We'll move
Question?
on to public comment while we wait, Mr. Chair.
yeah. Down, is there any public comment? Anybody have anything to say about any of this? I'm sure you have things to say, but not about us. Huh? Okay. Well, we'll wait here a few minutes. I guess you've been in communication with them, so we'll see if we
I
can.
just emailed them and they said they were gonna be joining, so.
Okay.
Did they forget?
They said that they didn't know they were supposed to be here, which
Okay.
I sent them an email.
Mhm.
Well, if you have a song you want to sing or anything? July or August. Sure, you put it for it. Yeah.
If this guy,
We play golf somewhere. I gave you a call to the person who didn't have a work out with this coaching, so. Might be some. Well, I'm a teacher, I'll retire and stuff like that.
Okay.
There were some issues, I don't know. Evidently, our applicant is trying to make connections through Zoom right now, so we will give him a couple moments to see how his technology works for him.
How you doing, Dave?
It looks like we may have made a connection here. I see the name Bradley Morgan. Are you there?
Yes, sir. I
Oh,
apologize about
Hello,
this. Hey, how are you?
good to see you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Get back to my paperwork here now, find the right one. South Main. Okay, we are looking at a temporary use permit for 1310 East Maumee Street. And Bradley, would you like to just give us a little quick rundown and explanation of what it is you're asking for the temporary use permit for, please?
Yes, sir, absolutely. The temporary use permit is just to bring in a Connex box, which will be used to store some HVAC units that are on site. Currently, we're trying to get a building permit now, and we have already purchased the units. So whenever they go through to pour the concrete floors, we would just need to move them out. And I'm not quite sure yet on the construction timeline if we were, if they say we're able to move and then be hung at the same time. So it's just really just to kind of store those units until we're ready to hang them. And then at that time, as soon as we get it done, and probably maybe not even take as long as until September, I think the 1st, but then we should be able to have that box out of there as soon as those, we hang the units.
Okay, so basically, if I'm understanding, it's like a cargo container unit or something?
Yes, sir. It would be like a Connex box that like an 18-wheeler would pull around. So it won't have the wheels or anything. It would set right on the ground. And then a flatbed truck, once we're finished with it, will just come and just winch it right up and then drive it off.
Okay. Commissioners, questions? Nobody? Is there anyone in the audience that has a question or comment on this? It's a quiet group in here tonight.
Pretty straightforward.
Okay. We have some items we need to go down through to look at. So I will work through these items. Number 1, temporary use permit is compatible with the various provisions of this chapter. This applicant has met the provisions of the chapter and has, as we've talked about below here, so fine there. Number 2, temporary use is reasonable use of land compatible with general plan land, use designation and zoning classification. Evidently, from what we hear, these ventilation units are required. So the planning commission must have acted on these before somewhere along the line. And therefore, the box storing these units until installation would be reasonable request. So yes for number 2. Number 3, temporary use will not impede the reasonable use of land or the orderly development of land. These boxes will, is it just one box, by the way?
Yes, sir. Just one box.
Okay, the box would be completely on the applicant's property, so it would not interfere with anyone else. Number 4, temporary use shall not adversely affect the adjacent use, buildings or other structures. Once again, it's isolated on the applicant's own property, so it's not going to interfere with any other property in the area. Number 5, temporary use will not endanger the public health, safety, or general welfare. Container situated in a way that should not be any issues, not impeding traffic or anything like that, so it should all be fine. Number 6, provision for adequate traffic access, circulation, off-street parking, and pedestrian safety have been provided and will be maintained. The container is located off the street. I assume there's room for people to walk around it.
Yes, sir.
Sidewalk area, okay?
Yep.
and not within the pedestrian circulation sidewalk. Okay. Number 7, granting of the temporary use permit is made subject to the conditions access necessary to preserve and the general welfare, not the individual welfare or any particular applicant. By allowing this box, it will keep the ventilation unit safe until they're ready to be installed. So the recommendation would be to approve until the requested date of September 1st, 2022, after which times the applicant would remove the temporary use of the Connex box. Seeing all that, I will entertain a motion.
Chairperson, seeing that we have found in the affirmative for all of the required items, I would move that we adopt the resolution for the approval of the application for a temporary use permit at 1310 East Long Eastern.
We have a motion. Do we have support?
Support.
Have support. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Jacobitz,
Yes.
Beely,
Support.
Strayer. Support. Kolesky,
Support.
Berthold,
Support.
motion carried.
You're all set. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And again, apologies.
Not a problem. That's why we have all this technology.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You're up. Anything else to come before the board tonight? Planning Commission will be meeting right in about 10 minutes. Otherwise, we are set for a meeting next month. We hopefully have one.
Yes, I believe there's one thing as of right now.
Okay.
Be on there.
At this point, we will see everyone next month, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
He's just over there talking to her about that. Folks, it's 7 o'clock. We will call to order the regular April meeting of the Adrian City Planning Commission. We'll have roll as soon as Jeremiah gets back to the dais here.
Jacobitz,
Here.
Love,
Present.
Weatherby,
Present.
Johnson's absent, Watson,
Present.
Taylor,
Present.
Patton,
Here.
Roberts is absent.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is consideration of the minutes from our March 15th meeting. Commissioners, you have a copy of those minutes. I presume you've had an opportunity to review them. Are there any additions or corrections to the March minutes? If there are none, we would entertain a motion for their approval.
Move to approve.
Support. Motion from Love with support from Taylor. All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? March minutes are approved. Next item on our agenda is case number 2211, which is a request for a zoning exception permit at 304 East Maumee Street. This is a residential property, just a couple blocks, just a block from here, right down there. Yeah, you know, that property is zoned residential office, which permits by right 1 or 2 residential units. More than that requires a zoning exception permit. A zoning exception permit allows a development or use which is listed in the ordinance but has been designated as a special exception. As such, those uses are generally considered as compatible with other uses, but require special review to ensure that they meet the specified requirements and that they are appropriate for the specific property for which they are proposed. In general, the property is zoned residential office district. 1 and 2 family dwellings are permitted by right. 3 and 4 family dwellings are permitted by zoning exception permit, provided that 2 parking spots are provided for each unit and that certain square footage requirements within the units are met. We need to determine, in considering this, if granting the permit would have an adverse effect on the environment or the value of surrounding properties. if the proposed use is compatible with the adjacent and surrounding properties, and if the proposed use is consistent with the city's future land use plan. We'll hear first from the applicant, and they can tell us whatever it is that they would like to in support of their application. Commissioners may ask the applicant any questions they may have. We will then take comments from the public that relate to this application, either for or against the proposed use. We will review any comments received from the public, either via mail or phone. And then we'll close the public hearing portion of this, and the commission will discuss the application. So with that said, is there someone that represents the applicant? Sir, if you would step forward to the podium and identify yourself for our records and briefly tell us what it is you're asking for.
My name is Dennis Sullivan. My wife and I own the property, 304 East Maumee. You can see it from here. Basically, it's a very large house. It's over 3,000 square feet. And I believe if somebody tried to put the money into it to fix it up into a single family home, they wouldn't get their money out of it. With that being said, even splitting it into a duplex still isn't really feasible at this point. I would like to make it into 3 units and make nice units that are right here downtown that people, can enjoy living in. I'm not the type of person, I own a couple different properties in Adrian that wants to just make a quick buck and rental property. I want to make nice properties for the city of Adrian.
You own other rental properties.
Mhm.
And generally, where are they at?
I own 640 Dennis Street, and then I own 820 Mulberry Street.
Okay. And I take it you don't intend to occupy any of these units?
No,
Okay. In addition to subdividing the home, what other improvements would you intend to make to the property?
well, right now the brick has been painted and it's deteriorating, but I'd like to get that fixed up. And I have a mason that I've already had a look at it to get that up to standard, make it look nice. Basically, I want to put nice finishes in this home, get a decent amount of rent for it to make it viable. I bought the house for $45,000 and it needs $150,000 worth of work. So it's a big investment.
What will you do with the property if your request is not approved?
I guess I would have to make it into a duplex, just a 2-unit. And then I don't know what I would do with the extra square footage. I guess I would have to incorporate it into one of the duplexes, which is a little large for that type of unit. Right now, 2 units are just over, one's 1,100 and I think one's 1,200 square feet. So if I took the 626 square feet that is incorporated to the single unit with 1 bedroom, it would kind of make it a little large for what the purpose of it is.
Okay.
What is it currently? Single family home?
Single family home. It was a group home and I'm not sure how long it sat, but it's been sitting a while.
Other questions from the commissioners for Mr. Sullivan? Anybody? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address the planning commission on this particular request? Ma'am, if you'd step to the podium and identify yourself for our records and tell us what you'd like to say.
My name is Abby Sanchez and I live right next door. I live at 308 East Maumee. My husband and I do.
Is that the house this side of it or?
No,
east?
it's more toward the post office.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
got it.
so
Thank you.
moving east.
Okay,
We have lived there since 2013 and have seen, single family, people live there. I mean, even the house that is just on the other side of it was owned by the same people that, owned that big place right now before they sold it. And then the people that came in to fix it up, they figured it was a money pit and then they sold it again to him, I guess. And, it is quite a big place, but my concern is mainly the driveway, because the driveway is like a U-shaped driveway, okay, that is shared by me on both sides, and then each family, like that house, 304, plus then 310 on the other side, okay? So it's a horseshoe, Okay, and my concern, I guess, is if it's, I mean, we've only ever dealt with it as a single family home, but if there's two other families living there, I mean, it was pretty busy as it is because like we have, you know, 3, sometimes 4 cars at our house, plus a few children. And, you know, I don't know, it just seems like it would be very unsafe if it was turned into a 3 family home right now, if 304 was, okay, right now, that driveway is divided. It was actually grandfathered in that way, and I have the paperwork here that shows that we divide that driveway between us. And my brother owned that house back in, I want to say it was 97, it might have been 96. And then he passed it on to my father, who then quit claimed it to me. Okay, so I mean,
We're talking about your house, 308.
yeah, I'm talking about 308.
Okay.
So my family has lived there for a really long time. And, you know, my brother did have to deal with the people, you know, that were in the nursing home. His concern at that time and my concern at this time is also if, you know, there are, I mean, because like the apartments that there are on our street are just past my house. Right next to me on the other side is 310. And then right after that, there's a bunch of apartments that start all the way down. Okay. But from this way over, it hasn't been apartments. It's been single family homes. And then there's I think he's an optometrist that is right there as well. And so, you know, my concern is just also the value of the properties going down. The value on my property has not gone up hardly at all since I've lived there. Okay. And I'm just wondering if there was, you know, an apartment building that had 3 families in it like that, you know, how much that would also, you know, cause my property value to go down. But of course, my main concern is so many people going in and out of that driveway. And there is no parking area on that house. There's a yard on it. Okay, so there's no parking area in the backyard or anything either. So those are my concerns. And if you needed to see anything about how that house is zoned and everything, I got that information here from the title people downtown today.
Let me just make sure you know, I realize I can see it here from here, but there's a park, then there's the optometrist's
Right.
house, then there's this property. That we're talking
No,
about.
there's a blue house. There's a big blue house. And then there's a
Okay.
great big
This-
gray
this-
house.
Okay,
This house has the pillars in the.
this is the one with the,
His is the one with the pillars.
yours is the one with the pillars. I'm
Yes.
with you. Okay, so.
And
okay.
our house is the gray blue house directly after
So
that.
when you
Yeah.
say there's a horseshoe driveway, don't understand what you mean by that or where it is located.
Can we see it on this?
Can we get a tighter?
Can we zoom in? Excuse me while
I can't even tell what I'm looking at. Oh, yes.
So ma'am, can you point out on the aerial there where the drive is?
Yeah, so right here is right between our 2 houses, and it goes around like that.
Okay.
It goes all the way around.
And you're telling us that the driveway on the east, is shared with you and the house next to you, and then it goes around this house.
Yeah, so I
Goes up
share
one
with
side.
one house and with the other house.
So-
And, yeah, and it is in here how it was divided up, and each side given 4 feet.
Mhm.
And, you know, how we were supposed to divide up that driveway between my house and his house.
Is there an easement?
Yeah,
Is there
exactly.
something in writing that says?
Yes, it's in writing right
Okay.
here.
Does your house have an independent driveway other than this one?
It sounds like it's shared, and that's what I believe is the case, which is not uncommon for many driveways.
Right.
She's saying she shares the driveway on the other side also.
Well, that's why I was asking, do you have an independent driveway.
I don't believe so. And you're saying that you have that it was shared?
Yeah, I've got the stuff right here.
Well, I'm not sure I'm in a position to.
It's not that hard to understand.
Oh, okay.
So, okay, this is where we're at. They divided this number 9 parcel right here.
Okay,
That would be my house and his house.
okay,
And then, right here, and these I got from my brother, they were given to him, and I actually told him to copy them downtown. They were given to him when he moved there, that explained the easement.
okay. Yep.
Because I think it actually belonged to my house, and then since the people who lived there at the time, way back whenever that happened, used to allow the people to use it all the time, then it went into the easement of that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay?
Yep. Do you have other copies of these?
Oh, no, I don't.
Okay, we'll see- we'll-
This is
Yeah.
just the plain deed that-
Okay, we'll give that back to you, and we'll see that you get this back.
So that garage is yours then?
Yes,
Okay. The garage in the back with the white van, straight behind.
Right there.
308. My question is with the staff report, it says about a repair garage doors. Is there a garage on? No.
So you don't have a garage.
So
Okay.
that may be I thought that maybe that was their garage, but when we drove through it, so with the new rental program, with this being a rental, I asked the inspector to look at it too.
Okay,
If you're gonna look at the zoning exception, I thought we might as well as look at what they would expect on the outside as
Mhm.
well, just kind of
okay.
nip it.
But if the garage isn't his, then,
If it's not his, then
okay,
that can be removed from that.
okay,
So
thank you.
it's,
Let me just one more.
Sure.
1 minute. Don. Is there anyone else in the audience or online that wishes to address the planning commission in this matter? Okay, then we'll go to commission discussion. So, Mr. Taylor.
So you've already addressed the issue about repair, replace any damaged chipping siding. You're gonna tuck point and paint. Okay. And you're probably gonna repair, replace any broken windows, since it'd be difficult to rent without that. My one question would be about the fact that parking spaces will be improved for the city of Adrian code. And even though you have space, you don't actually have parking spaces. So you're gonna need to either do that in gravel or asphalt, according to this, right? Okay, all right. Well, that's less grass to cut.
Yes.
And so would you be putting in a parking area in the back then, since
Mhm.
you are, okay,
That's what I was referring to, yeah.
yep, okay.
I'm wondering if we're getting ahead of ourselves until we know more details about this driveway easement.
Well, yeah. Either way, I mean, he needs to have
Access.
the parking.
Right.
Yeah. Parking.
Yeah, and
Well,
I am not an attorney, and I'm not in a position to parse, no, and I don't play one on
Not
TV, and I'm not in a position to parse this document this evening. But if in fact it gives the applicant access to that drive, then he does have access there.
Right.
Whether or not it's reasonable to increase the traffic on it, because that will impact the other person.
It's 5.5 feet, and I measured it today.
Okay,
And, the thing is that it also, we always, like when their real estate people are showing it and everything, we usually have to go out there, put a sign that says, this driveway is used by 3 families. We have to keep it open.
Yeah.
You can't just park on it.
understood, understood.
So, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I mean, clearly they share the driveway between their 2 homes, and
Yes.
that's revealed in the deed.
Yep,
The driveway on the other side, the east of the neighbor's house, is not really relevant
no,
to this question.
no,
She may share that with her neighbor, but that the applicant doesn't have any rights
no.
over that driveway.
no,
So
Or any,
his only way in and out is between the 2 houses, 304 and 308.
Yeah.
And that's the way that they would have to access the parking area. I mean, there is a concept of, increasing the burden on an easement, and you can't do that, without limitation. If it was established for one purpose and the burden on the servient covenant is increased by virtue of the change in use, that can't be done without limitation, right?
Right,
And so you're talking about, if it was historically a duplex, a 50% increase potentially in the amount of traffic that easement would be subjected to, because now you're talking about 3 units instead of 2. So I
Mhm.
think that is a relevant consideration for your discussion.
Yes,
But correct me if I'm wrong. So it could be a duplex no matter what. It
Can be-
doesn't
can be a
need our
duplex.
permission,
It
can't
doesn't-
stop.
it can be a duplex by right.
It could be a dentist office. It could be a law office.
Yep.
It could be an optometrist,
Yep.
correct?
Well, those are things that the zoning allows it to do, right? I mean, in terms of that easement that they're granted, that may or may not be true, right? The easement was granted to this property and likewise to the neighbor, at a time when these were presumably when these were residential structures. And, I don't think, it's not necessarily our business to get into that, but, I would alert you to that issue that, as I said, you can't increase it without limitation, regardless of what the zoning ordinance would tell you that you can do. There are private rights at work here as well.
Can I say something? Those houses were businesses, I think, at one time, because I was told the one where I live now, and mine is the oldest structure. Back in the day, it was an optometrist office as well. So,
That's been a long time.
yeah, so I'm saying I've still got the glass cases in my house that have where they used to put the glasses
Cool.
back then. So it's like, those were businesses at one time.
Mhm. Commissioners, we do have a recommendation from staff on this. I would mention, and this is a little dated, but it's from our comprehensive, not our most recent comprehensive plan, but our prior comprehensive plan. When one of our objectives in that plan was to encourage the rehabilitation and restoration of older homes previously converted to multiple family dwelling units back to their original single-family design and function. At one time, this body was generally opposed to breaking up larger, older homes into apartments.
Well, I would agree with that. I would say he's already going to turn it into 2 anyway, so that doesn't really have
So-
much pertinence because it's not going to be a single family regardless of what happens here today.
So in effect, Krista, we're talking about whether it's a 2-unit or a 3-unit.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And honestly, I don't really see a huge difference between the two. Not to generalize, but many people who live in efficiencies aren't even necessarily going to have a car, especially located so close to downtown.
We'll have one.
or one car.
Yeah. one.
Yeah, so I mean, it's gonna be, adding an extra unit's gonna be a very limited 1 car, maybe no car.
Mhm.
So,
So are you saying that if we did approve this, it would be conditionally based on the easement situation?
Wouldn't that be for the residents to figure out themselves?
Yeah, like I say, I don't think that, absent some evidence that what they're proposing is not possible, that is a private matter. You're here to evaluate it under the terms of the zoning ordinance and whether or not it's allowable under those terms.
Commissioners, if we were to approve this, we would stipulate that the parking area needs to be improved to city code, either paved or gravel, and be sufficient for 6 cars, 6 parking spots. And that the exterior of the house needs to be brought up to, I'm not sure there's a code for that necessarily, but be up to.
Yeah, it would
property-
need to
up
be
Property maintenance code
in
standards.
compliance with property maintenance code.
Okay. we would also, as I kind of mentioned earlier, my paperwork all screwed up here. No, looking for my notes. Here. Like I said, we need to make a determination that if we were to approve this, that it would not have an adverse effect on the environment or the value of surrounding properties. And that the proposed use is compatible with the adjacent and surrounding properties. It is consistent with the city's future land use plan.
This is where I wonder if 3 units with such a tight property space does have a negative effect.
Too intense.
Yes, and being in an area similar to this, where there are people with shared driveways as well, I can't imagine those broken up, and it just, 3, I think, is too much. I hate the idea of 2, but that's gonna happen, so, and I don't blame you at all. But I just see in this area, 3 is just a heavy burden and a negative impact.
Do we know, and maybe I'm overlooking it, but how many bedrooms are in apartment 1 and apartment 2?
There are 3 bedrooms in apartment 1, 3 bedrooms apartment 2.
Oh,
There's also a full bath in each plus a half bath.
You know, I misunderstood. I thought this was currently being used as a single family home.
It is.
It's used as a group home.
It was used as a group.
Okay,
Which,
okay.
is that a single family? That's a whole.
Well, okay, hold on the ball. Okay, never mind. Any commissioners' additional thoughts or comments following up to Commissioner Love's?
I honestly don't think there's a huge difference between 2 or 3. And since the units are so large already, as he said, it just makes sense to me to make it into a 3-bedroom. I mean, a 3-unit.
See, I have
I mean,
to, go ahead.
I don't see. It's an apartment. They're not going to be coming and going 35 times a day, like use of that driveway.
Mhm.
You know, the average person's going to leave once or
Go to work.
twice, go to work, come home, maybe go to the grocery store, come home. We're not looking to put 6 1-bedroom apartments in here. I mean, you can put 2 no matter what. I mean, if there's enough space for parking. There's a driveway there. It's, you know, if they put no offense, doctor, but if a dentist office went there, there'd be 35 cars every day going back and forth down there, from the staff to the patients to the deliveries to whatever, you know, I mean.
On the other hand, if it was next to my house and there were 6 cars, even if they weren't coming and going all the time, that's a lot of traffic.
I would just throw out one more thought here. 3-bedroom apartments may well generate more than 2 vehicles. I.e., if you had 3 students or 3 young professionals, it's conceivable that that would have to be something you control through your leases. Maybe they can't have more than 2 cars. I think you could probably, because I know you just mentioned that you may have as many as 3 or 4 cars because you and your husband and you have children. It's understandable. It could.
And, not only that, I should mention, my husband just mentioned it to me. That space gets very tight in the winter with the snow. And in fact, since that house was not in use, most of the time that's the throw up place for the snow. Okay. But the thing is that it's so tight in there, and my husband is usually the one that cleans both sides of that, you know, because he has, one of the vehicles that he has is a van that's a little longer than the others, because it's what he uses to work. So he parks it in the back so he doesn't get his equipment stolen. But it is a tight fit when it snows, real
Okay.
tight.
Thank you.
Sometimes I had to move my cars too, or my
Yeah.
trailer another place because I can't really turn around with the cars and all that. It's pretty tight. I mean, be honest, I mean, for 3 families, it's very, very hard.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but
Guys, let's get back to commission discussion on this.
yeah, my concern was the same as Commissioner Taylor's. I did not know those were going to be 3-bedroom units in apartment 1 and apartment 2. And it does seem to me the nature is, as you were saying, that
Could be.
there will be more than 2 cars for apartment 1 or apartment 2. And then it does become, even if you put it in the lease, that you can only have 2 vehicles, then 2 adult children or 2 whatever, and they're gonna have cars, and where do those cars go then? Go on the street? I mean,
Or the
that
front
does
yard,
become a
or-
front yard, or, I mean, that does become of concern, I think. I assume apartment 3 is an efficiency with just 1 bedroom and
Or even.
just, yeah. And is there sufficient space behind Jeremiah for a parking lot for 6 vehicles and space
Yes.
to turn around and thing? I mean, you had said there's adequate here, but this woman mentioned that she thought it was kind of too tight for that. Is there?
According, from the drawing that's in the packet, it's 40 by 64, so there would be plenty enough for 6 parking spaces.
Yeah, I didn't mean that the tightness was in that lot. I meant the tight is in the curving and getting through the lot when it
Entrance, yeah.
snows. It's really tight that way. Yeah. Because the snow, there's nowhere to discard it unless, into my yard, which is fine. But the thing is that with the curving and everything that happens there, that's where the problem is, especially if we get regular Michigan snow, not like one of those winters where it's hardly snowing.
Ma'am, are we looking up the driveway right now? Is that the shared driveway?
Yeah, it's in between the gray house and the tree. The big tree is in front of my house.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Where's the driveway?
No,
No, one
to the right.
that way. There you go.
That's the one.
Yep.
Oh, you went the wrong way.
I don't think I'd let you go down.
There you go.
Back right down that driveway the other day, I have a picture of it with
Mhm.
me. It's not as tight. I will have the snow professionally removed and pushed to an area that won't bother them or block anybody. There's a lot of room, whether there's 4 feet and we share a driveway, which they have for another driveway that they share on the other side. If there's any tightness in there, that's on their side. They have a fenced in backyard, which it does get a little tight back there. I work with my tenants. I would only allow them 2 cars, and I would make sure that if you guys ever had a problem with any of my tenants.
There you go.
call me right
That's
away.
better.
The problem that we have when an applicant like yourself makes promises like that, which I take you at your word for. A year and a half from now, you sell the property to somebody else. And yeah.
That's not why I'm investing money.
I understand.
Long-term.
I understand. I have to say, I didn't appreciate the fact that this was going to be in effect a 7-room dwelling until our discussion.
7 bedroom.
7-bedroom dwelling. Which just strikes me as pretty intense, given the size of the lots and the proximity to, one house to the other. I think it's asking a lot of that particular, when it was a group home, I'm guessing there weren't hardly any cars there.
They took them out in vans.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, people who live there didn't have cars.
But Mike, it meets all the criteria.
Yes. But
Why are we hindering all these issues that they've brought up
Well-
let me finish,
okay,
are issues that need to be resolved between the 2 neighbors. It's not the city's job to, at least I feel, it's not the city's job to deal with these issues. They purchased the home knowing it was split down the middle. He purchased a home knowing the driveway was split down the middle. He could still, even with 2, we can't stop him from putting a duplex in and letting
Right.
somebody move in who's got 6 teenage kids and they're partying all night, having cars in the way. We can't regulate who moves in there.
right.
We're making assumptions that there's going to be, it's a 3-bedroom, there's going to be 3, who knows? It could be a single mother with 2 children, a boy and a girl who want,
Yep.
I understand, also too, this is right on the border of where you made the comment, I wouldn't want next month. Well, you live in a strictly residential, you're not an RO area. that's what this intention is to be a mix of residential and businesses, correct?
Transitional
Transitional area.
Yep.
So there could be the opportunity for a business. It could be a single family home. It could be split to a duplex.
Mhm.
I really don't think a one-bedroom apartment adding one more person to that mix is really going to affect the use of that driveway and the use of those
Good point.
apartments.
And
Good
the,
point.
That those are,
well, the other problem is the bedroom's already there.
Yes.
It's,
Yeah.
that's the problem you run into, because you can still put 7 cars,
yeah, I mean, you could get,
even if you do a duplex.
I mean,
it's
who
still
knows, a
7 cars.
3-bedroom apartment, you could squeeze
Yeah,
6 people into each one of those.
Yeah.
And end up with 12 cars, like, but we're just making.
no, and I see that now, but
Well, would,
that's, whether it's a duplex or a triplex, it's still 7 bedrooms.
sounds like we're leaning towards approval of this. And
I'll help you out.
thank
I
you,
move to approve.
thank you.
Second.
Support.
We have a motion and support for approval of the request, but as part of the discussion.
I
With the
moved to,
stipulations.
the resolution should have that in there. So I moved to approve the resolution.
And let's make sure that it does.
I believe when I read it.
Accept
It
the
doesn't,
review.
it does not say that, so let's make sure that we specify that.
What?
That this is approved for a 3-family dwelling. Subject to no more than 6 parking spaces. And that the exterior of the building is brought up to, help me out again with the terminology, with the
Standards of the property maintenance code.
standards of property maintenance,
Correct, that's exactly what I said.
with a straight face. Is that's the motion? Is that?
I don't want to necessarily limit it to 6 parking spaces, like whatever if he wants to put enough asphalt down for more parking spaces so he can have a dumpster or turnaround space, I don't want to necessarily limit him with that.
He just has to have a minimum.
A minimum,
set
minimum.
parking Spaces. yeah.
Of 6 parking spaces.
Mhm.
So you're okay with,
Yeah.
you still
I
support,
don't want to lock it into 6.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to say 6.
there's a
There's
minimum,
enough room for him to put space so everybody can turn around and a dumpster or, whatever. I don't want to necessarily limit him to that.
Yes.
so that is.
That is
the
my- that is
motion
my
is
motion.
to adopt the resolution with the stipulation that there be a minimum parking for at least 6 cars and the exterior of the building be brought up to property maintenance code standards.
Correct.
And I believe there is also the additional, it either needs to be paved or the gravel needs to be.
Yeah.
That's part of the
Improved.
That's
standard.
Part of the, yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay, we have a motion and we have support.
Excuse me, can we put something else in there?
Not, you're too late now,
No,
Sorry.
you haven't actually gone into doing the next.
but
part.
we're done,
No, you were just making
taking public comment at this point. Okay.
No. Okay, well, I'll just say it here in public then. I hope that he will make sure that people are not parking in that driveway, because like I said, we all have to use it.
Yeah.
And maybe hopefully he will consider putting some kind of a sign up or something that says that there's children playing there, because there are a lot of children around there. And like you said, you don't know what kind of people are gonna be moving in there or anything, and so I think those children need to be protected.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there any additional discussion on the motion? Jeremiah?
Watson,
Approved.
Weatherby,
Support.
Cotton,
Support.
Taylor,
Support.
Jacobitz,
Support,
Love,
Yes.
motion carried unanimously.
there you go. Okay. Next on our agenda is strictly a discussion item from the property owner at 507 Water Street, that's Old Mill, I believe. Sir, if you'd step to the podium and identify yourself for our records and tell us what it is you'd like to tell us.
Hello, I'm Dave Van Brunt, the owner of the Old Mill, which is formerly Cutler Dickerson. Basically in discussions with Mr. Elliott and Mr. Clement. We're looking down the road to possibly put up more cold storage to accommodate for our business growing, if that makes sense. So we're kind of starting to progress here to see. When I originally talked to the city 4 years ago, basically it said 130 years worth of precedence. If you continue on, there'll be no problem. I brought it up the other day because we got some other stuff that we're looking at doing. And they said we should start the ball rolling to see what we've got to do it properly and in accordance to the city. And we want to do it the right way. So we're looking to grow our business, or we've thankfully, we're proceeding forward and growing. And as we do this, we're going to need more space for cold storage.
When you say cold storage, you mean a pole barn, right? Or a building?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't think there's anything in the ordinance that prohibits you from putting up additional pole barns, as long as they meet setbacks and lot coverage requirements. My concern would be, and I don't think it's been that long of use. Sorry, my microphone is not. There we go.
Okay.
Is all the outside storage that you have.
Well, some of that will go inside. That's part of what we're doing.
Because where your property is zoned is community business.
Right.
Outside storage is not permitted, and I don't believe that Cutler Dickerson did that.
Yes, they did. They had material back there. They had
What
stuff
is
everywhere.
RM1 means what?
So that's
This-
multifamily,
Me too.
and that's part of the issue
No,
that
no,
he's
it's
here
RM.
to
That's the part. Problem.
talk to you about, is that they have acquired additional property, which is highlighted there, the RM1 property, some of which are using, some of which are not. And so what we wanted them to come here and talk to you about is, whether it would be reasonable to rezone some of that to be an adjunct to their use. And if that was something that they were looking at doing, whether it would make sense for them, because they're kind of an unusual use within even within the B2 district, right? They have aspects of commercial, certainly. They have retail store and they sell their feed at retail, but they also process feed there. And, would it make more sense for the entirety of the property that they own to be a planned unit development, so they could kind of write their own set of regulations associated with that? Given the historic nature of the use, it's been there a long time, and everybody would like to see it continue in its current form in that location, I think.
So can you elaborate? I mean, you're kind of being general. Can you elaborate more of what you're trying to do without telling us too much? I mean,
He just said it essentially, he said it much more eloquently than I am. We're looking to grow. We have opportunities and we want the opportunity to grow if you guys will work with us. It's, and I didn't mean it as harshly as it sounded. If we can get it zoned, then we can make future plans.
Well,
Does that make sense?
There's many things we can do as a body
Yep.
to get to what you want.
Okay. I gotta
But
let
I-
you know.
So you gotta let us know.
Well, and that's. where-
We could rezone it. The only thing with rezoning I always have a problem with is that once it's changed, it's changed. And if you
Correct.
go away, I will tell you right now, Adrian College told us they never pile mulch in the old apartment building pile. And there's a big giant pile of mulch there right now.
Right.
It's that kind of
Right.
thing that I get hesitant in when we turn it to B2 or wherever we need to, and it says you can do X, Y, and Z, and you're like, oh, we'll never do that. Well, the next owner does it. And then it's like all the neighbors are mad at us.
As you can tell, I'm a little naive at this. So we're from Onstead. I mean, so we're from out in the country, so it's different. It's a little
We don't
different.
hold
I
it
mean,
against you.
so I guess that's what I'm getting at. When it deals with a city and within city districts. I
There's
need to make
lots of
sure.
things you can do. There's we could rezone it.
Yep.
You could do a planned unit development, which basically means you can come to us and say, we want to do this, and we'll say, no, but you can do this. There's also, we could do what's the one you don't like to do that we did for the,
Planned unit development.
The adaptive.
Adaptive
reuse, but
reuse.
it's not really, there's no building.
No.
So he's
Yeah.
talking about using.
Does
big-
PUD make
Yeah.
sense?
Well, sir, we are willing to work with you, just so that you know that.
Well, same here.
Yeah.
It's this is the
And I-
starting.
And I suspect
phase.
that either the rezoning or the planned unit development, I think I would feel better about a rezoning, but remains to be seen. My only concern, and we could, and it, not to say that it couldn't be addressed in some manner, is, that, for example, that great big huge stack of black stuff.
Right. It's millings.
And what is it? Just
Asphalt millings,
asphalt millings.
which we sell them we
Yeah.
sell them out of our
That is-
facility.
It's a huge thing and it is right next to residential property.
Well, and that's exactly what I'm here to address too.
Yeah.
It's,
And again, we don't need to get into the details
No,
tonight, but
well,
that's the kind of stuff we would
the
need.
plan is
address.
to neaten it up.
Yeah.
We get more inside storage, so we can put some of our products inside
Mhm.
and grow it in accordance to that it will look nice in the neighborhood. I don't want it to look bad
No.
either. And we also purchased. I'm trying to think what number it is, if you don't mind. We just recently purchased this house.
Uh-huh.
This property.
Ah.
So we will have a straight property. line.
Well, and
Because
that-
this building here needs to come down.
Mhm.
It's in too right, it's past.
Mhm.
So the property you purchased is residential
Yeah.
right now?
Sure.
The house.
Yeah, it's a house and a garage.
Okay.
But we wanted it,
All that's RM1.
what I wanted it for was to see how the property line, it's within
Yeah.
that far of that
Yep,
house.
gotcha.
And we wanted to clean it up.
I think I can speak for the commission and say, we are certainly open to this discussion and would like to see you flourish in that location.
What would you require from me? I know I came in, I just
Yeah.
came in wide open.
You
I-
need some
I-
sort
Okay,
of
this is-
plan, like
Okay.
some sort of
Yeah,
Blueprint.
engineering drawing. I mean,
Well-
not necessarily engineering, but
I was gonna
some
say,
sort of-
what I would probably bring to the table is a rough drawing at first.
Yeah.
Just rather than getting on into the engineering aspect of it
Yeah.
and that.
At
Cut
least,
my
a site
cost.
site
Yeah.
plan kind of. that shows where things
That's the
are.
word I was looking for. Was site plan.
Yeah.
And it's, because I,
And you can make it as, like, for plane waves out here, they have stuff that's 10, 15 years down the road on there. And on the plan there, it's but we just need something to look at.
I felt kind of funny coming in here to do this, but I appreciate being here right now because it gives me something to work with and a direction to start.
Well, and the other aspect of it is as you do that, is how will it impact when your property abuts those residential properties?
I know that they had
Yeah.
mentioned that I would need a barrier, whether it be a fence or a trees or.
trees or a
I
berm
personally
or
would like to go
something.
with trees because they absorb sound and dust can better.
Yeah. So keep that in mind too.
Yes, yep, that's
Yep.
exactly what I was thinking,
And keep in touch with these guys.
definitely.
In fact, when you have something like that developed, go to them first and
Yeah.
I thought
they will advise you as to what the best.
they did a
route is
great
to-
job. And matter of fact, when he said to be here today, I was like, sorry for it, but I really didn't.
We're
I,
harmless.
I've got ideas in my head, but they haven't come fully forward yet.
Yeah,
And-
that's right. Mike's right. You need a site plan.
Okay. Now, just out of curiosity, would something in that be one big building or would it be better than two smaller buildings? I'm asking a little bit of an idea
Depends
from
on
you
what you're
guys
gonna
and just
do.
bring it,
Depends on what you're gonna do.
Yeah.
just bring it to the table and see what we can do.
That's up to you,
Okay.
as long as it meets all the, we can't
We're open.
circumvent the codes, the setbacks, we can't go around it.
At this point, put your dream on paper.
Well,
Yeah.
that's,
I mean, that's, if you want one big building,
you
put
don't
one
want to
big
see all
building,
that,
but put your dream on the paper and then we can work with it.
And then we can go, nope, or we can go, yeah, that's great,
Or change this.
or change
Okay.
this.
Yeah, but
Or
until
you
you've got
can
something
say,
to
this is
show.
what I'm gonna do, and then when you start digging a hole and you're like, oh, we can't do this way.
right.
You gotta come back to us and say, this is
And
what we
that's,
need to
that's
change.
exactly what's, I gotta get a wheel out there and measure. Everything changed when we purchased that, when that house went for sale, we bought that because we could straighten that property line up.
Yeah.
And you mentioned pole building. Does that,
I know nothing about the building code.
okay,
I
I was just asking.
making a
I-
statement when you
no,
said cold
And
storage.
that's what I want. I mean, but we're aiming at cold storage. I'm not gonna do any, when I say cold storage, it's not freezer cold. It's just,
Yeah.
it's a non-heated building.
But you've preserved a historical part of our city.
Yes.
And
Well,
we
it's-
appreciate that.
It's a work in progress.
It is a work in progress.
And and it's
keep
neat
it
to
going, 'cause
see.
I buy
You've
my
kept it
mulch from
clean?
you and I need it.
What's that?
You've kept it clean and tidy. That's,
We're trying to.
yeah.
It's, like I said, it's always a work in progress. And the unfortunate side is it's hard to get good help. And you tell them to go out and do this and something. So, and I haven't had the time to go out and chase it around, but if you know anybody that wants to work in a store like that, please let us know.
Should
But
try one at a
yeah,
pizza place.
but I appreciate the opportunity here and kind of excited now. I didn't know what to expect, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
Thank you for coming.
thanks for coming in. Appreciate it.
And is there any other questions you can think of right off? Or anything that I could do for you other than the site plan? I appreciate that. All
But we look forward to
Alright.
seeing your plans.
right, thank you very much.
Folks, next on our agenda is a discussion, and only a discussion at the moment, of potential expansion of the marijuana East Side Overlay District. I would like to extend my thanks to Mr. Clement for all the maps and the research on this. Made it much easier to get a picture of where we are, I think. Thank you. Folks, everyone got maps?
We're gonna go to the back of this, so we can open these all
We can do that.
up. I was thinking I had discussed that with Jeremy at some point.
Is there any problem with us?
Or do we
Do
not?
Can you get us on the screen in the back if we move back there? No,
Well,
no problem.
Okay,
If we don't need to open them all up in front of me.
and I don't think we do.
Well,
That's what I got.
I'm just saying.
Because we're I think when it comes down to it, we're talking about a fairly small area, even though these are huge maps of the entire east side.
Right.
We're talking about a fairly small area.
just
I
wanted to throw
agree.
that out.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for catching.
Yes. Does staff, before we get into the discussion, does staff have any comments on this?
Well, so
We
what,
don't get too deep into it.
Yeah.
Okay, hey, guys, pull back.
I mean, Jeremy's memo kind of summarizes, but as we went through it and tried to find, yeah, so we started with industrial areas that are contiguous to the overlay, because we don't want to create spot zoning, obviously. And then as we looked at those, and we looked at what was on each of those, what buildings were in each of those areas to evaluate whether it seemed reasonable or not. But what it really came down to as we got down to it was when we compared those areas to your recently adopted comprehensive plan, the future land use map in your comprehensive plan, very few of the adjoining industrial areas were actually planned to be industrial in the future, oddly enough. Yeah. And so there really as it turned out, there were only 2 spots that were consistent with the current version of the future land use map. There's a spot on the south side of Lawrence Street, which is a parking lot. And well, I should mention the one that's up on the screen there first, because right at the south end of the fairgrounds, which is across Maumee Street from the overlay, is an area that is currently zoned. That's what's on the screen. It's currently zoned warehouse, though the plan contemplates merging the warehouse district with the light industrial district. And so if it were rezoned to light industrial, that would be an area that would be consistent with the future land use plan in terms of being included in the overlay as industrial. But for the corner piece there, if you look at that area that's boxed out at the southwest corner, that is planned to be commercial or office or something in the future land use plan. So that was one. And then I don't know if we have a graphic of the other one on Lawrence Street that we can
Yes, we do.
bring up. So that was the other. And those were the only 2 places where there was land that was intended in the future as envisioned by the comprehensive plan to either become or continue to be industrial that were contiguous to the existing east side overlay. So that's not to say that you couldn't contemplate other areas, but if you were going to contemplate any other areas, the first thing that you would want to do is look at your future land use map, because when you make zoning decisions, they should be in accord with your future land use plan.
Or we should change it.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
What about the next graphic with the Michigan? The Michigan Street.
Oh, that's Stevenson's. Not Stevenson's, big.
So that area along there in the,
That's Stevenson lumber, or that's lumberyard.
yeah, is.
I mean,
right, well, it is zoned industrial right now. What the future land use plan shows for that area is that it would be commercial in the future. And that may or may not make any sense, but that was carried over by the consultants from the prior future land use plan. And nobody commented on it and stayed that way.
Well, and the fact that it has been commercial for 130 some years.
Right, it is actually, in this case, it's actually used that way. Other areas,
Yeah.
these areas that are designated for general commercial of the future aren't necessarily
Right.
used that way,
Right.
including the area that initiated this discussion in the first place,
Yeah.
the block between Dean and Gulf Street there.
Which is still problematic. The block between Dean and Gulf Street.
Yeah.
I certainly understand Mr. Francor's desire to have that particular piece of property included in the overlay. However, we had a rationale for not doing so when we first did this. And
Well,
that being-
someone did,
Pardon?
someone did, not all of us.
Oh, well,
Some of
I
us
myself
here.
weren't,
Oh,
was not
okay.
here.
okay. But there,
It was drawn by the commission and the committee for the commission.
and there was a rationale to it, that being that it would act as a buffer between the overlay and the residential properties on Dean Street.
Well,
No,
I will have to say. There's only two things. I would have assumed the part on Lawrence Street was already in the overlay because it's the parking lot for all the other stuff that's already in it.
Yeah,
which part?
I. agree with
On Lawrence Street.
the-
Honestly, I feel like
You're looking-
adding that to the overlay is just tidying things up because it's the parking lot for the other piece of,
It
for that
is.
piece of property.
Yeah,
I would say that was an oversight on us, the commission and staff. Like, we should have just been like, yeah, that's the parking lot.
I agree with
But
that.
if,
When you look at the future,
yeah, it could be a plan.
Yes,
and if that is no longer a parking lot,
I
does
understand.
it make sense to have just that property in that block in the overlay?
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of not though.
But as I'm saying,
As of right.
I feel like it was missed, but
As of right now,
Yeah.
it's very interesting, yes, but
yes.
when you talk about future,
And as it is, it can be used as a parking lot
Yes.
without,
My other thing is, though I am sympathetic to Mr. Francor, I'm also sympathetic to the many other people in this community that have already put money into these buildings. You know, Mr. Kennedy here last week was like, you're devaluing my piece of property by adding, you know, I never looked at it that way, and I agree with him. He, before the city commission and whoever decided, oh, this big chunk of piece of property on the corner is a great deal to sell it to someone, you devalued his property. We did.
Yeah.
And I'm very sympathetic to that as a property owner in town, and like, and there's still plenty of pieces out there. We haven't run out of pieces of property.
there's plenty of potential
And
expansion room. in the
I'm
overlay.
sympathetic to Mr. Francor, but I'm also sympathetic to the other people in town too.
I would
Right.
say that I actually kind of disagree with that though, because to me, that is kind of like me saying, I don't want any other restaurants coming to town because I own one. I mean, to me, that's the motivation behind him showing up here and saying, I don't want this. It's kind of just to block competition, and I kind of believe in a free market, so I'm on the opposing side of that particular issue.
In general, when you look at how much land you're designating and or zoning for a particular use, you try to over designate and over zone because you don't want to create artificial shortages, right?
And we have, I mean, not necessarily intentionally, but we have plenty of room, there is plenty of room for marijuana grow expansion. As it sits right now.
And my concern is if we
Open this
if we
door.
open it up, where else are we gonna end up going that, well, you let him,
Yeah.
my piece of property butts that.
Yeah.
You know, it's, to me, it's Pandora's box. We had this discussion, this, for lack of a better term, argument years ago.
Not that long.
Not, well, I mean, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And I'm not comfortable with it.
Well,
That's just me.
comments.
Yeah.
So if I understand correctly, if I have a grow operation, I can also, within the overlay, I can also apply for a provisioning center, correct?
If it is attached to a grow
If
operation.
it's attached to grow operations. I have a lot of people talk to me about, we have enough provisioning centers. The first thing I say is you ought to be happy that some of these buildings have been rehabbed on South Main or whatever, okay? That's another story, and I'm proud of those facilities were. But we could really just think about this. We have 10 now in the B2, but how many more could come in within the overlay areas if people had a grow operation and had,
And I'm confused why we're not discussing that tonight before, we're putting the cart before the horse, unless this is what we're
Discuss
discussed too.
Yeah.
Because we need to set up what is a grow operation. Because this is a grow operation. I got one plant in the corner. I'm growing it.
that's true.
Mhm.
So I'm
That-
I'm laughing because
they're-
it's real.
It's real. I mean, and Mr. Kennedy brought it up to us, like, we don't have a rule that says what is a grow operation.
It's real, except in the sense that there's some pretty
There's some
substantial
licensing.
barriers to entry
Right.
to getting into being a commercial grower.
It's oversimplified, but
But does our,
Our ordinance.
you know as
doesn't
well
say
as anybody, a creative attorney.
But
can
do
get
you only,
around that.
do you only have to have the license
You're
to
willing
grow,
to
or do you
spend the
actually have to have
money,
a
you
living
could
plant?
have a tiny grow in connection with
Do you,
a dispensary.
do you actually have to have a living plant on the property or only a license to grow?
Well,
Good question.
so, yeah, I mean.
Because then you don't even have to grow a plant.
You're too smart.
I am a doctor
yeah, but you're not.
and I stay at Holiday Inn
You're not a
Express.
PhD, though, right?
That is a hole that we probably do need to plug, and that is one of the things we need to do is to define a grow operation. And
So what's the smallest grow license?
Yeah, I don't remember the exact numbers, but there's class A.
So class A
And
would
it's
be.
different, the exact number is.
So we need to
different
start-
whether
we
it's
need an
medical
ordinance
or
that says-
recreational.
You must be in possession of a class A.
Well, you would have to have that license.
Yeah.
Now, yeah,
matter
what we
what.
would, what we're talking about is saying you must actually be cultivating X number of plants
Yes.
in connection with
Like
any
40% of your
dispensary
land.
that would be in the overlay. district.
On that property, within that property.
Within that property.
boy, I'm not sure we want to define it that way. Because I've got a grow operation and the market is down.
So you don't.
So I've decided to cut back to 15% of my, of my capacity.
That's where I think you at least define a percentage of your license and use.
But then we're not in a position to go in there and count plants either.
Right.
And if we can't enforce it, then let's not say it.
I
Correct.
agree.
But then you can't touch it then, because then how are you gonna? Or there's no point in touching it.
I guess that's kind of my point.
Well, I mean, we as a municipality do not have the right to go in and inspect.
Well, I don't
Only
know.
I mean,
Health and safety,
health and safety, we do, but we don't have a right to say,
we're taking inventory.
we're taking inventory.
Well,
No, but-
and if.
But they have
if
records.
These are all zoning exception permits, and
Mhm.
so.
You can
know,
always
if
make-
That's necessary to determine compliance, then yes, you could
But once
periodically
we've
inspect.
given them a zip,
Well, you can periodically.
You can always
inspect
check their
pursuant to
compliance.
Special use permit. Yeah, I mean, you would be able to. Do we want to? Is that do we want to be policing these uses
I mean,
to
you
that
have to have,
extent?
so you have to have so the bottom of the rung is an A, class A license. You've got to pay what's it going to cost you to get one of those?
At the city, $5,000 a year, but at the state, substantially more
A
than
lot
that.
more,
So you're going to have a big investment in a grow
even at the minimum level.
at the minimum level, even if you're trying to circumvent to put a.
I can tell you exactly what the licenses are. A class A is 500 plants, a class B, this is medical, is 1,000, a class C is 1,500.
Yeah.
These can be stacked if you look at what I
But
gave
what do
you.
they cost? Do you know what that?
Meaning you could have an A, B, and C license.
Because the fees have been reduced recently, and I
Yeah.
don't know what, and the medical is increasingly less relevant. It's gonna be the
And
adult use.
You can also
more
see with the
relevant.
size of Flourish, they have 1, 2, 3 Class C medicals and 3 Class C recreationals. So
Kara is our resident brewer here. The state only gives out so many licenses to,
Not in my case.
so
I'm a
for,
manufacturer, so
so you're a
they're not,
manufacturer.
they're not limited at all. Not in any way,
And
shape
then-
or form.
So as a manufacturer, you're allowed to have a tap room and sell unlimited amounts without. any-
Yep, and
liquor
serve
license.
food, yeah, because, yeah, I don't have a liquor license. It's not like the Class Cs like a bar would. I'm a manufacturer of a product and I am allowed to sell on site. I'm allowed to have food products on site. So, yep, basically, and there's no limits within the state of Michigan, how many breweries. So,
As long as you can pay your license fee and pass all the inspections.
yep, and it's not an easy process or a short process to get approved for. It's a lot because we are manufacturing a controlled substance just as marijuana
Mhm.
people do. So, yep, there is not a limit on breweries.
Folks,
At all.
we've got a couple of different issues going on here. One is we generally think it's a good idea if we define what a grow operation is. We have some warehouse property that maybe should in fact be rezoned as industrial. We have a request to consider expanding the overlay district on the east side. I think that maybe we should focus on that third one, at least for the moment. I hear some sentiment that we are not interested in expanding the overlay almost at all, with the exception of maybe that Lawrence Street property and perhaps what is currently zoned warehouse property. Yeah, I realize it's not an absolute, that some people feel different, but I do get some sense that we're generally not in favor of expanding the overlay district.
I'm kind of on the other side of that.
That's
so I'll
why
just-
that's
I'll
why
just
I
say
mentioned
that.
it that way.
I'm on that side of it as well.
Oh, okay.
So, I understand the property that Mr. Francoeur has and that whole stretch there. And the fact that you wanted that to be a buffer.
But to me, it's not.
But it's really not a buffer because if that had been part of the overlay,
And there's
just look
marijuana
everywhere
right-
else.
There's marijuana right there. too.
Yeah, I mean, look everywhere else. You've
It's
got
silly.
residential across the street from many other
Well,
areas.
Yes.
but all that property that's zoned I-1 that faces Dean Street, at
Yeah.
least half of that, even though it's zoned, it is residential. Those are single family
I
homes.
I understand that.
They may
I understand
be
that.
in use, but not in zoning.
But in use, in practice, they are.
And I would say that in use, that building that
This-
we're talking about.
Mhm.
This isn't our
there-
decision, right? This goes to
It
would
it's-
ultimately
it's
go
for
to the.
City commission, it's for us to make a recommendation.
But if I could finish my thought there.
Yes.
We're talking about an area where there's already marijuana. We're talking about even adding more marijuana right across the street there. This isn't a buffer. This guy has no other use for this property. I know that it's currently I-1. There, like I said, there's marijuana right across the street. I feel like this guy's being given a hard time for some reason, honestly. I don't know what that is, but he's tried to market the building for years. We're saying we shouldn't really consider this because it's going to be business or commercial. Nobody's going to use that as a business or commercial. Nobody's bought it for years. Have you seen the building? I have. I live right over by it.
Probably not gonna be
It's-
used as a grow facility either, but that's not for us to decide.
Yeah, I'm just saying as far as whether it should be considered and
Well, then, Kristen, do we consider just that property, that one corner property? on the
no,
corner
I
of
don't,
Gulf?
I don't think so.
Or do we
at all.
consider that entire block facing Gulf Street, or do we consider the
I
entire
would
block facing Gulf
say-
and Dean?
If you're gonna do anything, you should do the whole block facing Gulf Street, or Gulf
That-
and Dean. Why not Dean?
Yes, that there for sure. And then the warehousing.
What about these right here?
But I'm hearing,
They're all,
They're all industrial. Why would, I don't know why they weren't in there to begin with.
right, that's what I'm saying. That is the part that does not make sense to me. And again, this being warehousing and having the intention of becoming industrial, I mean, I really feel like that's probably the only use that anybody will ever use that for. It's been empty for how long? I mean,
Mrs. Weatherby?
But I'm hearing, I guess I'm hearing several things from commissioners, and I hear that there's plenty of room in the overlay that, as it exists, for a great deal of expansion. And then I'm hearing also that, you know, if we start chipping away at the overlay, then
Why
In
have it in the
fact,
first place?
why have, and that's really was my question, Brian. Why have it? And if we start chipping away, then when do the dominoes fall? I mean, where do they stop? I totally understand Mr. Francor's position on this, and I think even Mr. Kennedy said that he thought in early, you know, kind of drafts of the overlay map that was in the overlay. Now, I don't know, I was
I
not,
don't know of that.
I don't know of that either.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think that's why, for me, it's been a difficult decision, deciding about that one piece of property, but I guess I don't really need to, I don't see right now why we would need to expand the entire overlay. Well, let's consider not having the overlay. I don't know.
And if we did Mr. Franker's property, we would have to do the whole stretch down there facing golf. That doesn't make any sense not to, right?
Yeah,
Do this.
Because it's a parking lot, right?
it's pretty
yeah,
much a parking lot,
it's
yes.
literally just,
It's a parking lot for
So-
governmental services.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
Then part of it.
I think the argument that Mr. Kennedy made was a solid one.
I did too.
And I understand where you're coming from. But, you know, all these growers, all these provisional people, they all stood by, they all participated in the process as best they could. And we determined the overlays after a lot of discussion and everything. And now that it's being changed, you know. So it's a little bit different than your situation.
right, I wasn't a part of it and I see things that I don't really agree with from the original process, being new blood, I guess, relatively after, I mean, it's been 4 years now, but still.
I think we need to make a recommendation. We need to ask staff. We need to decide what we want first, whether we want to expand the overlay. What portion, what expansion are we going to suggest? Is it just the Gulf Street facing? Is it Gulf Ending?
Well,
Yeah,
I mean, to the degree you're asking for a recommendation for staff, we're gonna tell you what we told you in the memo. Tonight.
I misspoke, Greg, because what I was saying, we want to give staff direction to come back to us with a resolution for either we do nothing or we have some expansion.
Well, what I would say about that is that if you're going to do anything other than those two areas that we talked about, then step one is to look at your future land use.
Yes.
plan.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
right now, we can't recommend that you rezone any land inconsistent with future land use plan. You put your whole zoning scheme at risk if you do
Exactly.
that. Now, interestingly enough, if you did away with the overlay and just incorporated the marijuana uses into light industrial, you would not be doing something necessarily inconsistent with your future land use plan
Yeah.
because it's already zoned that way,
Yes.
right? It would take care of
Are
itself.
there
But
unintended?
now you're now opening vast areas that are not
Yeah.
contiguous to the current
Like
overlay
fairground.
and that are productively used, you know,
Wait.
for industrial uses.
Yeah.
Like all the old Ventures buildings, for
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
To competition for marijuana uses. And I wouldn't suggest you do that, just making the point that there is that subtle distinction between the two approaches.
So
Yeah,
if,
and then-
if we want to expand the district to include the Gulf and Dean Street block, the overlay. First, but they're already zoned industrial. And so it would not require a change in the future land use.
Well, it's still a rezone. So
Yes.
if you're adding them to the overlay,
Okay,
you're rezoning them.
okay.
So when we, as staff, look at a rezoning request,
We look at,
we're gonna look at the future land
Okay.
use plan, and we're gonna say that is not consistent with
Okay.
the future land use plan. The future land use plan plans for that industrial to go away
Mhm.
as it's currently drafted. It plans for it to go away and for that to be commercial. Now,
Mhm.
does that necessarily make sense? I don't know that it does, but that's what's on there right now.
Yeah. and to
So you're
me,
talking about the strip that faces golf.
And,
Yeah,
that,
talking
the whole
about
thing, the whole thing,
all of
Yeah, yeah.
these
that double face.
being
Right.
commercial
Yeah.
versus
I think I
industrial.
just said
The
that.
future land use
Stretch that
plan
faces
calls
golf.
for it to be
Yep,
commercial, not
exactly.
industrial.
Right. Well, and you know,
That entire-
Greg's been saying this and reminding us that we need to be consistent with the future land use. So,
My 2 cents on this is this is an elected official issue. This is a hot button topic. And I feel I would vote yes to move it to commit, to move to add them. So it goes to the commission because it,
First, we would have to change the future land use plan.
well, if that's the case, then I say no, but this is,
And Brian, it's perfectly okay
you know,
if.
we represent the people, but they're elected by the people. And this, to me, this is a hot topic. Some people are, you know, I could care less.
If we don't want to do this. we
But
just
some
don't do anything.
people,
We just don't
yeah.
do anything. We don't have to do anything.
My feeling would be to do nothing, and if Terry would like to take it to the city commission, he's welcome to do that and see what they say.
Mhm.
But my feeling is do not, you know, I'm with you, Kara. Free enterprise, if you're gonna.
You keep calling me
I know,
Kara.
I keep calling you Kara.
She's not here anymore. Hasn't been. for
Right,
years.
Sorry.
I refer to her as
It's been Krista, I'm sorry. It's been a long. day. Krista, I'm all for, you know,
okay.
I make a great pizza. If another pizza place wants to come in, so be it. You know, if another beer place wants to come in, you're gonna make great beer still, and if.
Not gonna have any effect on me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the same thing here, but to other people, this is a hot topic.
It is.
And it's not just beer and pizza. It's to some people, this is a very hot topic.
Well,
I
so,
think-
And I-
so
and-
what- but so was I when I opened the first brewery. We didn't have an easy go. It took
Huh.
about 5 years for me to even get to that point.
I think it would make perfectly good sense for us not to take any action on this, to let this die.
I would agree.
But for us also, but to give future consideration to the warehouse, do we want to rezone the warehouse district, eliminate the warehouse district, make it light industrial? And for the purpose of what?
Expanding the,
Well,
and we don't want to.
We're just going like this.
If it's to make the unused piece of land compliant with the future land use plan, I'm fine with it. But to say that we're then gonna put it in the overlay, I don't want to touch it.
no, I didn't,
I know, but if that's,
yeah, if that's where we're going. with it,
yeah, if that's where it's going because of that, I don't want to touch it. If it's to make it part in fluid with the future land use plan, then so be it, because it is.
Like
I
you said,
suggest we let this die.
I think the whole thing needs to die for.
Do we need a vote or not? We're
Nope,
there's nothing
we're not
official,
doing
right?
anything.
I know.
Nope.
How about raise our hands, or whatever? I would agree.
Okay. Brian,
I agree. Yeah.
let this go. Nancy,
With the
Yeah.
caveat,
Don, okay,
it's not really a caveat, but I just want to, I think I can speak for all of us. Thank Greg and Jeremiah for the work they've done, because
yes.
it was really hard for me at some point to, on our smaller maps, to get a sense of where everything was. This really put everything in perspective. So thank you both for this.
Yeah.
And there'll be a Christmas bonus coming forth.
Ms. Cotton?
I'm still the dissenting vote. but it sounds like I'm the only one.
Dr. Love?
Is there going to
I
be
agree.
public comment?
Here's your chance. Please do.
Hi, of course, Terry for report. I,
Terry,
you know,
go ahead.
listening to you, I understand the struggle of, you know, what is going to be best for the city of Adrian. I do have copies of some of the original maps. I cannot produce them. I'm not in town. Where the original overlay was from Dean Street to Maumee Street, or Dean Street to Gulf Street, all the way to Maumee. And that got changed somewhere, and I don't know why. You know, if not this, what?
you know, it is right there. Mr. Kennedy was very eloquent last month when he spoke. I was actually awestruck with some of the things he said and how well he said them. But just like Krista said, well, can you not bring it in he supported adding a gas station where there's right next to a gas station. But all the way on the other side of the city, he opposes expanding the marijuana overlay. If not included in the overlay, what in the future land use for my property do you have? I mean, that would help me market it and make it a productive to the city of Adrian. That's what I would ask you to consider. And
thank you.
That's really all I can say at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Commissioner Goss, you have the floor.
Step up to the microphone.
Step up to the microphone.
Gordon Gauss, 432 State Street. Got a couple of comments. First of all, I miss all you guys. I will say that. Not so much your latest discussion here. I just wanted to comment on the previous one about the old mill and your discussion there and your willingness to work with the gentleman that was here on that property. I, for one, have been very critical of the way the city deals with businesses. I've said that it's no secret that I've said that we aren't business friendly. We don't do what we need to do to draw businesses into the city. We do things that drive businesses outside the city. And I just want to commend all of you for your comments tonight and your willingness to work with an existing business and play nice with them, if you will. I think it's a great example for us all to follow. It's important. Businesses are important. Ones that are existing and have an opportunity to grow, I think should be supported to the extent that our ordinances allow. And really, that's all I want to say. As far as this latest conversation, if it ever made it to the city commission, you'd have a hell of a time explaining it to us. So anyway, but thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Can I comment again?
One more time.
Thank you, Terry
Go for
Francor. If there was such opposition to this in the community, I would think there would be more citizens there. And I would think that there would be every one of the people that own dispensaries or grow operations saying, don't do this. Don't. How many of them are present?
This wasn't.
And that's my closing statement. Thank you.
Terry, just so you understand, this was not, it's not a publicly noticed meeting. This was just a discussion. So the growers, no action would have been taken tonight besides saying we're going to, I mean, no, the only action we would have taken would have been to say we're going to do a public hearing, and then notices would have been sent out to all the neighbors.
Okay.
I'm sure Mr. Kennedy would have been here. Those other people would have been here.
Okay,
Well,
any other business to come before us this evening?
No, I do not.
Okay. Motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Support.
All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you all very